Hey, gang, TGIF, here is the Friday poll question at smirconish.com. Do you agree with President Biden's assertion that Vice President Harris's defeat to Donald Trump in the election was significantly influenced by racism and sexism? First, thank you to my friends at Parks Casino. Springtime is the perfect time to get lucky in no time. Parks Casino, exit 29 off Route 81 in central Pennsylvania. Parks is my casino of choice. Tonight is comedy night. Get out and mingle in Shippensburg. Listen to this. Funny lady Peaches Rodriguez headlines the show with special guest. I love this name, Joe Porkchop Lombardo. I think I can picture Joe Porkchop Lombardo in my mind. That's 8 o'clock tonight. It's free. And then live music every Saturday night. The Side Pocket this Saturday. No Can Do takes the stage. That's tomorrow night. Maybe you'll take mom to see No Can Do on this Mother's Day weekend. Parks Casino Shippensburg, they celebrate military veterans every Monday. Show your military veteran ID and get a free hot dog lunch with chips and a soda as a thank you from Parks Casino. Every Tuesday, it's the Parks Casino 50% golden discount. They got a lot of fun stuff going on. It's like a mingling hub at Parks Casino Shippensburg, and 500 state-of-the-art slot machines, 48 live dealer electronic table games. Close if you're in Hagerstown, Winchester, Chambersburg, Martinsburg, and many, many more. Not too far from Harrisburg, the state capital. Get in on all the action. Parks Casino Shippensburg off Interstate 81. Visit parkscasino.com. Got to be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So the Friday poll question. Do you agree with President Biden? He was on The View yesterday, and he said that he thinks that Kamala Harris's defeat was attributable to racism and sexism. Interesting. He had a lot of things to say that I thought were worthy of our analysis. He said that Donald Trump's had the worst first 100 days of any president ever. He also said that he thinks he would have beaten Trump had he stayed in the race. By the way, let's pause right there. No way. No way would Biden have defeated Trump had Biden stayed in the race. And then he said if he accepted any of the blame for the loss, and he said that he do because I was in charge and he won, so I take responsibility. I don't believe that he believes that. I don't think that he believes it's a reflection on him at all, and I think he's mistaken. Biden went on to criticize Trump's role in bringing down the bipartisan border bill. That's a valid criticism. I mean, that border bill was defeated, and what have we done in its place? Nothing. Deported a lot of people, strengthened the border. That's a good thing. But this was the first joint appearance by the Biden since leaving the White House. And relative to Vice President Kamala Harris, he said, I was disappointed but not surprised. He then went on to suggest that sexism and racism played a role in her defeat. They went the sexist route. Quote, I've never seen quite as successful and consistent a campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race. I believe that Kamala Harris's gender and race played a role in the election. I'm sure, sadly, some among us factored that into their voting decision, but I don't think that's at the top of the list. I don't think that's at the top of the list. He acknowledged that he had a terrible night during the debate, and then both Bidens pushed back on the idea that he suffered cognitive decline, which was evident to those around him. Jill Biden offered a forceful defense and said, I did not create a cocoon around him. You saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. That's the problem. We did see him making speeches. So anyway, my answer to the poll question, do I think that race played a role? Yeah, sure. Do I think gender played a role? I'm sure that it did. Do I think that's why Kamala Harris lost? No, I don't. Why did Donald Trump win? My view is unchanged since the election. First of all, she was never a good candidate. She dropped out of the 2020 cycle. I remember the night I was there. I think it was Detroit, when in her, one and only big debate appearance, she went after Joe Biden on the busing issue. Do you remember that? And they had the merch ready to go, the T-shirts. That was sort of her crowning moment in that cycle, but she dropped out before a single vote was cast. I don't think she was ever a strong national candidate. So there's that. I also think that not only was she anointed by Biden to be his running mate. She was then anointed by the process because Joe Biden apparently took umbrage at the role that President Obama and former Speaker Pelosi were playing to usher him out. And so very quickly, so the books all say, and it makes sense to me, because Biden resented the role that Obama played and Pelosi played. And Pelosi and Obama wanted there to be a blitz or a mini primary because they were suspect as to whether Harris had the chops. That's what caused Biden to immediately endorse Harris. It was sort of an FU to Obama and Pelosi, if you buy it. So I thought that was not doing Kamala Harris a favor. I thought that she should have competed for it because if she emerged from a blitz or mini primary, it would have strengthened her as a candidate and been good for the country. That's what I said at the time. That's what I still believe. But that's not what happened. And then when she was speaking of the word cocoon, when she was rolled out, they did keep her in a cocoon. Jill says she didn't keep Joe in a cocoon. She did. But Kamala Harris initially, do you remember? There were so few media outlets where she was comfortable going. In the end, though, I continue to believe that Donald Trump won the election because of immigration, because of the economy, and because of the condescension that was directed toward and then motivated his supporters. And then you throw in the prosecutions, most of which never should have taken place. The New York case, despite ending in a conviction and making him a convicted felon, should never have been brought. By the way, Letitia James might now be the one with a real legal problem. And that if the playing field had been left open to Jack Smith and only the January 6th case, Judge Tanya Chutkin, my old law school classmate from Penn, I think would have gotten that case to trial before the election. And then who knows what would have been the outcome. So mine is a no vote. I don't agree with Joe Biden in terms of attributing it to race and attributing it to sexism. Now, about that other election, really an amazing front page headline in the New York Times today. An American Pope, Leo XIV of Chicago, took global path to the top of the church. I live proximal to Villanova University, and I drove through, I admit it, I drove through the campus yesterday after the news broke because I just kind of wanted to check it out, and the bells were ringing. And I think the bells were ringing in recognition of the Pope being a class of 77 graduate. It's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And I was, in front of the television at the time, very excited to see it happen. I thought it was emotional and overwhelming. No matter who was selected, I got caught up in the moment. Maybe you got caught up in the moment. And then when they said it's an American Pope, I'm like, what? Because of course the conventional wisdom is that the United States has so much power that the Catholic Church, the cardinals, wouldn't want to see a further concentration of power in the hands of an American. And then when Pope Leo came out, I took note of the fact, and I don't have the definitive answer on this. I need to get the definitive answer, but I took note of the fact that he spoke in Italian and Spanish. I thought for sure he'd say something in English, and he didn't. And my theory is that was deliberate on his part so as not to cause any consternation from those around the globe who are already unsettled about the United States, namely President Trump in particular. And now, I can see the chyron on my CNN discussion tomorrow for this block. American Pope versus America First. Because a social media account attributable to the Pope is critical of some Trump policies. Although you'll find this interesting, perhaps, that the guidance from CNN from time to time on high-profile matters where factually they need to be very dialed in and very precise, there will be guidance issued. And this guidance may have changed because perhaps by now they've done more reporting. But the guidance that I saw was this: all reporting references regarding the content of this X account. What X account? The X account under the name of Robert Prevost, which posts an article critical of J.D. Vance on immigration, must say an account posting in that name, because I think that they've just not yet, or they hadn't as of last night when I saw the guidance, they just hadn't been secure in saying that it's absolutely his. To me, it seems like highly likely that it is. But, the guidance do not directly attribute the content to the Pope. They still wanted to do the reporting. So it's interesting because it posted an article critical of Vice President Vance's interpretation of Christian doctrine, calling it wrong. The X account on February 3rd posted an article by the National Catholic Reporter entitled, J.D. Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. The account was started in August of 2011, and it has posts on a wide range of topics from immigration to George Floyd. So will there be some tension between the American president and the formerly American Pope? That remains to be seen, but it sure is exciting. Something else that I wanted to make sure that I reference. I loved yesterday's poll question, never discussed on yesterday's radio program. I'm talking about it today, though. Which is a more secure career path, college degree or skilled trade? 33,562 voted. 77.4% said skilled trade. There are a number of stories that have caught my eye. I talked about this yesterday in our poll podcast, but I'll just repeat for those who weren't with me yesterday. There are a number of stories that have recently been written, all on the upheaval that is taking place in education. Largely a reconsideration of whether the conventional four-year college degree is worth it. And among the four stories that I draw on is a Wall Street Journal piece with a dateline of Philadelphia, and the focal point is the Father Judge High School. And at Father Judge, there's an 18-year-old who is coming out of high school, first job, $75,000 a year. And I'm contemplating beginning my CNN commentary tomorrow by saying something like, high school graduate, first job, $75K. An athlete? No. A social influencer? No. A welder. Yeah, a welder, 75 grand. He's going to weld at a defense contractor in New Jersey. Welding, by the way, for nuclear submarines. So I guess you got to be the best of welders. But he's not a one-off insofar as there are 24 welders in this Father Judge program. Each one of them has a job offer, and each job offer is north of 50 grand. So suddenly there's attention being paid to the trades. And something that I've been thinking about is the political ramification of this. If all of a sudden fewer people go to college, this is really an interesting subject that I may want to do a whole segment on. What will be the political ramification? Because Donald Trump won 14 of the 15 least educated states in the 2024 election, and Kamala Harris won 14 of 15 of the most educated states. We've learned from Doug Sosnick and others that education is the best barometer, best predictor of how somebody's going to vote. So it's just a subject with a lot of tentacles. Artificial intelligence now playing a role, because the statistics say that high schoolers and college students are, despite whatever the admonition might be, are relying on artificial intelligence. Classroom attendance is being questioned on a collegiate level. Great piece that I read in the Harvard Crimson on that. The idea of, well, I can do it by AI, therefore, why even show up? Well, then why even go to college? You work so hard to get in, and then when you get there, you don't go to class, and instead you rely on artificial intelligence. It doesn't make sense. And the skilled trades are not what they used to be. That welder needs to have a great deal of knowledge, including computer knowledge, to be able to compete in what the trades have become. So, yeah, fun stuff, really fun stuff. But yesterday, 77.47% said it's the skilled trades that are the more secure career path. Go vote on the Friday question. Do you agree with President Biden and what he said on The View yesterday when he said that Harris's defeat is attributable in large part to racism and sexism. I say, I'm sure they played a role, sadly, but that's not why she lost. And I'm going to tell you one other thing, and I'll tell you one more thing. We've done this from time to time, and I feel the need to do it again soon. If that election were held today, what's today? The 9th of May. The 9th of May, Donald Trump would defeat her again, and he most certainly would defeat Joe Biden. He would have defeated him in November, and he'd defeat him today. Yeah, I know that runs contrary to a lot of the bubble thinking that's out there, but that's my view. Go vote on today's poll question at smirconish.com, and thank you for that. Like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications. Thank you for helping us get past 60,000 followers of the YouTube channel, subscribers to the YouTube channel, on to 75,000 next, okay? Thanks, gang.